I'm Baby Francisco with this segment of Lessons for Entrepreneurs. At Vader News, we've amassed a library of hundreds of interviews with seasoned entrepreneurs and venture capitalists about their lessons learned and advice to entrepreneurs. In 2009, we conducted 50 interviews. Here's a sample of some of those lessons learned, starting with one of my favorites, vision is bumbling around.
Vision is great, especially when you can do it with 20/20 hindsight. In 1986, I was asked about vision of Sun, and I said, the best thing to do to have vision is pray to Lady Luck, because frankly, you never know vision when you see it, and I still don't really believe in vision. I believe in bumbling around long enough to not give up on things. And then eventually, when success comes your way because you've just tried and failed in every possible way, and the only way that's left is the one successful way, and always, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, seems to come last. It's so obvious when it comes. I should have thought of this earlier. This bumbling around is really what, to me, vision is about. And it's the best way to be a visionary. You just keep failing and failing enough and not giving up.
I would consider Tribe a failure from an investor standpoint. So lessons learned from Tribe. Number one, especially if you're going after consumer internet, you gotta pick the macro and then test continuously until you get to metrics that work. And my biggest lesson from Tribe, well, two lessons. One was we didn't test enough to get to virality. And the problem we had with Tribe was the lack of virality was masked by a huge word of mouth. And so our traffic did grow, but it grew in a straight line, not asymptotic. It didn't grow exponentially, it grew straight line. And so what happens is it's straight line like this, and then it tapers off, at least the growth rate. And so it can fool you for a while.
So you were thinking that at some point you would hit that inflection and it would...
Yeah, but you can, the one problem you have, early success can mask a lot of flaws in your strategy.
The number one thing is you've got to be able to dream. You have to have a dream when you do a company. You have to really, really believe that you're doing something fundamentally different, that you're going to change the world, and it's something that is what evokes the passion in you. If you don't have a dream, you're not passionate, it just doesn't work. And this is something I've learned the hard way. There have been times when I've tried to do something when I simply didn't feel the passion. You just can't do it. It's too hard already that if you don't have the passion, you're just not going to go through the walls, climb the hills, jump the hoops that need to be jumped.
If I may say that, we used to say technology, IP, patents, you can take it to the bank. I think a good team, you can take it to the bank. It's one of those things that I think will always have significant value. And when you look at the friend feed, Facebook acquisition, a team like that just doesn't come out every day. It was an awesome deal.
Everybody says, I want to grow revenue, and then they don't look at revenue, and they don't know what it is, and they haven't memorized what their revenue was yesterday and the day before. At Like.com, we get daily revenue reports that come out and go out to the entire company that show exactly how we're doing. By the way, all of our investors get copied on these daily revenue reports as well. So the first thing I tell people is you can't move a number that you don't focus on every single day. So if you want to move revenue, you've got to look at revenue, you've got to know what it is, you've got to focus on it.
Pandora is a recapitalization, kind of revision. Started in January of 2000, but and kind of there's still a core, music genome project part of that continues on, but the core business is entirely different. And maybe just, a couple of thoughts I'd share with entrepreneurs is one, it's incredibly common. It's very, very rare that the founding idea turns out to be like right on the money and you just kind of like ride that thing the whole way. There are almost always twists and turns, and pretty considerable twists and turns, and that's just, that's part of the reality.
The first engineering hires that I had, there's a guy, Matt, who's the first engineer still at Mint, And he was making about $1,000 a month working for 3 startups, sleeping on a cot in a friend's apartment at Stanford. So I said, all right, you're a fantastic programmer. I'm going to triple your salary. I'm going to pay you $3,000 a month. So $36,000 a year is what I started off paying him. And that's what I paid my second engineer as well. But Matt got about 2% equity at the time, and after dilution, let's just say that's worth quite a lot right now.
Communication can be really important in these tough times. And I think the fact that our suppliers often are struggling, our customers are certainly struggling, often our venture capital investors are struggling for exits, that the communication that a CEO and a company can do to its employee base, its investor base, its partner base is really, really important. Because I think with that communication, there's less of a chance of issues of evolving, of conflict, of difference of point of view, and keeping people aligned and communicating is super important in that period of time. And I think that's the first bit of advice that I would give in difficult periods of time to anyone.
In sequence, we raised over $90 million on our own with no VC funding, and people told us that that couldn't be done. They told us, in fact, that you had to have a VC. How else were you going to go out and do it? How else were you going to attract investors? And the truth of the matter is, you can roll up your sleeves and do it yourself, and you can create a relationship with your investors that is by far better than what a VC will ever represent for you. You can create a relationship by communicating and get them to actually believe in what you're doing, have a passion for it just like you do. And so that's the advantage of touching investors on your own.
I should have left the industry standard in the beginning of 2000, which was, of course, our most profitable, most exciting year.
Right, at the height of it.
At the height of it, but I didn't.
Was that in your gut?
Yes, my gut was saying, get the hell out, because I knew I was in a situation which I couldn't control, where I had a new set of shareholders, but we were minority, and it was still controlled by a majority shareholder that I disagreed with fundamentally could not agree with. Yeah. And I got so caught up in the fact that I had built this myself and it was my baby that I couldn't leave it, even though I knew that I couldn't do what I wanted with it. Right. And I should have left. And it, you know, it would have fallen into the hands of the people who controlled it, and they would have done whatever they would have done with it, and it probably would have done better. But instead, it was very acrimonious for a year and a half until then it fell apart. And so I should have followed my gut and left, even though it seemed like the most painful thing in the world to do. Hanging on was actually much more painful.